Hi, this is Larry and Jeannie Smith from Valley Engineering, and we're here today to show you how to mount a redrive on a VW engine. Of course, first off, we'd like to say we appreciate you purchasing the redrive from us, and we'll do our best to do a good job to make it work out for you. Okay, first thing we want to do is show you when you get your box. It'll come in a box like this, and have your redrive in it. What you'll get is your big prop adjusting tool to adjust your belt tension. You'll get your set of belts. Get your bottom pulley with the bolt and all to go in it to tighten it up, and a seal to go on your crank nose, and a baggie full of your oil breather and studs and nuts and adjusting shims, and then the main prop assembly. That's all that'll be in your box. That's where we'll start from there, and then we'll go to the engine and show you how to prepare your engine case. Okay. Okay. The next step in our assembly of the redrive. Now, we have jumped ahead a little bit here and pre-prepared our case. It would normally have your short studs here that you'll need to take out, and we supply a set of double nuts to put on a stud and remove the shorties. Because our redrive bracket is 3/4 inch thick here, these will have to be removed. Double nut them, take them out, and at the point that you have all the studs clean, and the top of your case is clean, you'll need to take a straight edge and make sure that it is straight, level across the top of this case here. Now I've already filed this a little bit. We had just a small flashing, had to be removed with a file right here. And we cleaned that off and made sure that this is a smooth surface from your fuel pump mount straight across, so that your redrive bracket can set on there straight or flat. You want to make sure that that's good and flat. And then you'll install your new studs, 50 millimeters, and your long stud. And you'll take your double nut them and run them down until they're just start to seat. And the long one here, it's very important not to over tighten it. When it gets to here, it's real easy to tighten this so tight that you'll bust this case right here. Too much pressure. So you just run it down till it's just snug and quit. And don't over tighten this front case. So at that point, this part would be ready to measure and adjust for your shims. Now in your redrive, you'll have a oil separator, and it is marked F for front. You'll put that on. And you got your oil separator now. No dope at this point, because you take your straight edge and you measure for shim height, because the here to here is still a slight variation. And you'll take a feeler gauge and you'll check your, I've already predetermined this one to be it's about 25 thousandths. You hold this, measure with the feeler gauge to see what the depth is of all four, and you'll mark them. And whatever this distance is here, the thickness of your gauge, you'll add approximately 5 thousandths or so. In this case, these rear ones measure 25 thousandths here and over here, so I'm going to put a 30 shim on top of here. The front ones measured, they measured about 13 or 14. And the closest I have in our pack that we give you is a 20, so these will get a 20 each. So on your assembly, you have your long stud, and they're in order in their thickness. You pick your shims.
You might tell them what different thicknesses you have there.
In your shim pack, they come with 4 12s, 4 20s, 4 30s, and then 4 60s. And so in this case, we're going to put 2 30s, 30 here and a 30 here, and then the thinner 20s in the front. And that's where we'd want to be for our bracket. Now, on your bracket, we supply it with a large, heavy nylock nut for your final, when you're all done with all your adjustment, you'll put on your nylock nut. But in the meantime, you're gonna be taking it on and off several times, getting your belts adjusted. We supply it with just a gem nut, runs on and off real easy, very easy to put on and off. Okay, now we're to the point where your bracket would be pretty much ready to go on. You would put her down. If everything looks good, when you knock it down with a rubber hammer. If everything seats good, then you'll be ready to get your silicone. Okay, you get your silicone and we'll dope it all up and we'll put it on the stay the next time. That'll be a done deal. And you'll have an 11 millimeter with a lock nut for the top where it's a close tolerance.
Lock washers.
Lock washer, yeah. And the other 5 here are a washer head nut with a teeth on it to bite in. Now, at this point, if we had doped all this up, it'd be ready to go. So we'll take this off, we'll dope it, we'll put it back down, and when we come back, that part will be done, and we'll show you how then to install your top sprocket, your bottom sprocket, and your belts. Okay? Okay, we're back now, and while you're away, of course we took the bracket off. We doped with a good type of either gasket maker silicone or Loctite 518, some kind of really good sealer. We sealed underneath the oil separator and sealed it down. And you also dope around the hole of where your fuel pump was. And then we tightened her down. We torqued all the bolts to 14 foot-pounds. So this bracket is done, doped, and torqued to 14 foot-pounds. At this point, we'd be ready to install the bottom pulley. And with the bottom pulley, already you have installed, you have a seal, your oil seal to go on it. You'd want to make sure that your nose of your engine here is dry and smooth. No burrs or flashings, nothing that's going to catch it. You would install a good type of silicone, same thing, either Forma gasket or Permatex grade gasket maker or Loctite 518 are the ones we use. You get it all doped up, put her up there, get it started, and you finish it with a rubber hammer. Put her up there and tap it in. Be careful not to crush it, of course. So just put her down till it seats. You can feel it when it hits. It's good and solid. Keep your hammer to the outside edge so you're hitting on the metal part. Okay, now your seal is installed. Next, it's pretty simple. You go to your sprocket. Now you have a keyway with a timing mark on it. And make sure very careful that you line up your keyway very carefully. Start with it wherever your key is, hanging a little low to that side. I've got my key to the bottom, so I let my sprocket hang a little low and make sure that starts on there. It's relatively easy to miss the key and try to force this on and push your key out to the inside, and you got a problem. If you get her started good and just get her tapped on a little bit with the rubber hammer, it's for sure your key is started and looks good. You'll have either a 20 millimeter for standard VW or a 5/8 deep drilled. If it's possibly a Steve Bennett kit, it may have a deep drilled crank, and you'll have a 3.5 inch 5/8 bolt to go in there. Either way, you'll have its own custom washer, steel shim. This will already be, it'll have a black EP grease already installed on it, so that you don't have to worry about greasing that. It'll already be greased up and ready to go. You'll get her in there, get her started. Once you get her started, make sure your big washer seats down in your sprocket so it's tight. And then you run your bolt on down to it. That way you know everything is square and centered and straight. And normally you would run that down with a wrench and torque it to 175 foot-pounds. For the 20 millimeter, 150 foot-pounds for the 5/8. And we've got a flywheel lock on the engine stand here. If it's on your airplane, we would use an impact gun on it and just pull her on down good and tight. But on this kit it's 20 millimeters, so we would put a torque wrench on here and we torque it to 175 foot-pounds. We'll call that good for now. We have to reassemble this one later. And at this point, that will be the end of this stage of the installation. The next stage will be to install your top sprocket and your belts. And then we'll get them installed and show you how to adjust them. Okay, our next stage will be to assemble the top sprocket onto the redrive bracket. Just before we start out here, we'll show you what's in here. You've got your 6 little balls here. You have an adjuster plate. Got your tensioning balls. It's very important to note that you have a 30,000 shim here that goes between them. Your idler. Then here's your adjusting shim to set your depth of your sprocket in and out. This is the initial shim pack that we will have installed from the factory. And then you'll have another assortment here of shims that come in your little baggie. And that's what you'll use to pick from to adjust the depth of your sprocket in and out. If it needs to go in or out, you'll take a shim and put it on, or you'll take one and subtract some thousandths to get your alignment just right. So we'll put this all together. And when you get ready to put it together, if you want to leave the little tensioning balls out, you can do that. It makes it a little easier to work with, not quite as much tension. Things are falling around on you. But we'll be sure to include the 30 thousandths. Very important to have it in there for your depth, or you'll be 30 thousandths off. And you take that, grab it with your fingers like this. Even when your balls are in there, that's the proper way to grab it, just like that. You have a flat on the top here, and you have a key in your bracket that have to line up. That's what keeps your bolt from rotating when you go to adjust it. And we'll turn around here now real slow, and we'll put this. All right, here we are. We have our pulley all intact in our hand with our flat to the top. Our idler goes on the distributor side. That's the slack side of your drive system. Put her up there. Slide her together. This stage of the procedure, what we're doing is trying to make sure our pulleys are as close as we can get them to straight up and down with each other. We'll tighten this up real quick here. And this will need to be brought up all the way to tight. Take your big wrench, give her a little snug, okay? Now, this stage, of course, we don't have any of the tensioning balls, so that's loose. The sprocket turn easy. But the purpose of this stage is to two things. Try to get these pulley grooves lined up as close to straight up and down as you can with each other. And it shouldn't need any adjustment, but there's variations in cases and old cases. They've been on and off several times or things. You'll need to check and make sure that these two pulleys are in the same plane. This face lines up with this face. If for some reason this top one is leaning in or out, it's okay to go back to your shim pack and install another 10 to 20 thousandths here. Either put them in or take them out to let this bracket lean in or out just a little bit and bring these pulleys to the same alignment. Because they need to be in the same plane so that your belt tension is even straight up and down for your front and your back belts. Because the system is 4 individual belts on this particular model. Some will be 2 belts, some will be 4 belts. And you want to have the same tension on them. And to do that, this will need to be in the same plane. So now, if we looked at this, we put our on here on there. We've pre-adjusted ours, and it's pretty close to straight up and down here. And when you get your belts on it and we actually start the engine and run it, you'll be looking to see that your belts run true and don't try to climb or move. And sometimes it's just a little hard to get them just right with a straight edge. And the actual running the engine and checking it, you'll be able to see if you might be just a few thousandths off, and you want to change this back shim in or out to make them run really true. But this is where you start, plane here, and get these as close to straight up and down as you can with each other. And then we'll take it back off, and we'll put the belts and the balls in, and we'll tighten her down to stay. Okay. All right. we're ready to install it now. We're gonna say, just for grins, we'll say that when we measured it, it was 20 thousandths too far in. You need to add 20 thousandths or so. So we'll go to our shim pack. We'll pick out our 20 thousandth shim. We'll add that to our pack. That'll move our sprocket outward 20 thousandths, bring our alignment to where we want it. Okay? So then we'll assume we're going back on to stay this time. We'll put our on. We make sure we have our 30 thousandth shim in the middle. We'll put in our 6 tensioning balls. And we'll use our adjuster plate and put her on there. Now, of course, you want to be sure your pockets go together so your balls are correctly positioned. That may not sound real good. And you have adjusting marks here. We're going to go up, hold it together. Don't want to let your adjusting balls fall out, your tensioning balls. Put her in there. There it is. Once again, we're still using the jam nut. We're not sure we'll be totally finished. You may need to make adjustments. Now it's a little got a little tension on it. It'll take a little bit longer to get this nut all the way up. You're squeezing the tension on your adjusters. But once you've got them well encapsulated where they can't fall out, still got a little slack here to use. And you want to go ahead and put your belts on. Now, this system, of course, got our idler on the distributor side, so you know it's on the correct side. So we'll take our belts, slide them on. Just for grins, we try to line all the letters and numbers up so they look nice. You slide your tops on, slide them around. And this is a 16 groove pulleys, so we're using four belts of 4 grooves each. Make sure you get all of them in all the grooves, well seated. And you push your idler down, bring them up here. All right. Go ahead and tighten your back on up a little more. Snug her up. Now we're getting pretty close. Got everything about where it goes. We'll be ready to stop and get our big wrench and our adjuster and show you how to tighten them on up the rest of the way. Okay, here we are for our last and final part of the installation procedure. Our belts are on. Our idler is on the distributor side. They're all in the grooves, and went through and made sure they're all in the grooves good and smooth. And you put your big adjusting wrench that does come with it. You'll either provide your own crescent wrench or whatever for your adjuster here. And for reference, you'll be able to see we have here 2 marks, and we'll slack it right here, and it's just in its what you call that, in its slack position, unloaded. There's a 3/4 of an inch difference in them or so. Then when we go to tighten this belt, we'll loosen the big prop bolt, and we'll pull the tension around to line them up. Bring those up to line up. And it takes, of course, now you're compressing your tensioning balls. It takes a little more time to pull this up tight and pull her up to, how many foot-pounds on that? Just good and about 2 good grunts will be tight on that. Now you can see that we're lined up here. That's your preliminary belt tension setting. As you run this a little bit, these are brand new belts. They're going to stretch a little bit, and they're going to seat into the grooves and wear themselves in good and make a nice fit. This will show they'll start coming apart a little bit. There'll be a little bit of difference in the alignment. That's when you know it's time to readjust your belts. You bring them back up to this position. Now we're going to stop now. We'll go to a recap. We'll come back to the front and kind of go through a few things we might have missed and try to explain that to you, the finished deal when you're all done, you should be able to turn your prop, and it will slip in the drive direction and lock up in the slack side. So we'll go from there. Okay, we're back and we're finished. We're ready for a small recap here. A few things we might have forgot to mention. On our bottom pulley, we do have the timing marks are on it. They're just small little indentations on the back side, and they are at top dead center and 30 degrees advance. And if you have a new engine, you can use those to time it, preferably without the top sprocket on there. It's much easier to see your timing light, but they do have the timing marks on there to go by if you need them. The belt tension is set, and at this point, we would start it and run it a little bit, and just watch and see if either one of these try to run forward or backward, which would still indicate maybe a minor adjustment needed as the belts kind of seat in. You might see it lean just lean a little to one way or the other in the grooves, which means you need to move it in or out to line them up a little better. And then when you get that done, if everything looks really good, at this point it'd be time to take off your jam nut and remove this whole assembly together, set her down on the table, take your two shipping bolts out and go ahead and put in your prop bolts, put your prop between your drive flange and your crush plate, bolt her all up and torque it down to the specifications, and you'll be ready to come back. Slide her on here, put your belts on, go ahead and use your big nylock locking nut, and it'll have EP lube in there so it goes on easy and can tighten her down good. If you feel it's necessary, or your inspector feels it necessary, you can safety wire this nut, or even your slack adjuster, your idler adjuster here can be safety wired. So, and that's, I think that's about it. We appreciate you.
One more thing.
One more thing?
The timing marks correspond to the front cylinders, not the rear ones. So
Okay.
the timing marks correspond to the two cylinders next to the pulley there.
The timing marks correspond to the two front cylinders, not the two rear. And I guess that's it. We appreciate your purchase. And if you have any problems or any questions, you can send us an email at culverprops.com website, or give us a call here in Missouri at area code 573-364-6311. Why is Dick grinning? That's bothering me.